Henry was 78 years old. His hands were strong even though his face was wrinkled from decades of sun and wind. He lived on a small farm outside the main colony settlement, a place called New Haven, built on the planet 442b. The colony had been established 15 years ago. Now 5,000 humans lived here, working, building, growing food, and trying to make a life far from Earth. Henry spent his mornings in his garden. Today, like every day, he watered his tomato plants. The soil was red and rich. The plants grew tall and healthy. Henry did not think much about the dangers people talked about. He had lived through worse things than anything this planet could throw at him. He was born in 2047. He had seen human history unfold in ways that broke many people: wars, floods, earthquakes, famines. Henry had served as a soldier for 23 years. He had been deployed to regions torn apart by conflict. He had seen people lose everything. He had lost friends. He had lost his wife 10 years ago to illness. But he did not break. He kept moving. He kept living. Now, in the middle of the day, an alarm sounded across the colony. Not a soft alarm, a loud, harsh siren, the kind that meant something was wrong. Henry stood up from his garden, wiping dirt from his hands. He looked toward the settlement. Red warning lights flashed above the central buildings. His comm device buzzed. It was a message from Cole, the colony administrator. All colonists must gather at the central hall immediately. It was urgent. Henry walked to the settlement. The streets were filled with people moving quickly, some running. Children were being pulled inside homes. Shop owners were closing doors and locking them. Fear was spreading like water finding cracks in stone. The central hall was crowded. Henry found a place to stand at the back. Cole stood at the front with Dr. Parsons, the colony medical officer. Both of them looked serious and tense. Raised his voice so everyone could hear. "A dangerous creature has escaped from the research facility. We need everyone to remain calm and follow safety procedures." The crowd immediately became louder. People were asking questions, speaking with fear in their voices. Dr. Parsons stepped forward. "The creature is it is a juvenile, but it is still dangerous. Our apex predators, they have claws that can cut through metal. Their teeth are designed to tear flesh. They are fast, intelligent, and aggressive." Henry knew about everyone did. The Empire controlled a huge part of space. They had a reputation that made other species afraid. The stories about were dark. They were painted as monsters, as killers. The colony had captured a small number of them for research, trying to understand their biology and behavior. "How did it escape?" someone in the crowd shouted. Answered, "During a transportation shift this morning, a lock malfunctioned. The creature got out. We do not know where it is now. Search teams are looking for it." "We could all die," a woman near Henry said to her companion. "The creature is young," Dr. Parsons said, trying to calm people. "It is probably only 2 meters long, but it is still capable of serious injury or death. We are asking everyone to stay indoors. Lock all doors and windows. Do not go outside unless absolutely necessary. We have armed teams searching the perimeter." Henry listened to all of this. He did not feel the fear that surrounded him. He had survived Earth wars where soldiers shot at him and tried to kill him. He had lived through a hurricane that destroyed entire cities. He had seen buildings collapse. He had seen people suffer in ways that television could never show. He had watched friends die. A young cub, no matter how dangerous, did not scare him. "What is the likelihood it will come near the residential areas?" someone asked. Lowe said, "The facility is 3 kilometers from the main settlement. The creature will probably stay in the forest hunting for food. But we cannot take chances. Stay inside. Stay together. We will update everyone when the situation changes." The crowd began to move toward the exits. People were speaking quietly, worried. Parents held children close. Some colonists spoke about weapons they owned. Others talked about hiding in their homes until the creature was caught or killed. Henry walked back to his farm. The sun was starting to move lower in the sky. The day was becoming evening. He could see the 2 small moons beginning to appear, faint against the blue sky. He went into his house. It was a simple place. A bedroom, a kitchen, a living area. Pictures were on the shelves, pictures of his daughter and his granddaughter. Pictures of a life lived on Earth and a new life built here on 442b. Henry locked his doors as had instructed. He made dinner, soup with vegetables from his garden, bread, tea. He sat at his table and ate slowly. Through his window he could see the forest in the distance, dark green trees, shadows growing longer as evening came. He thought about his past, about the chaos he had survived. About being a young soldier in a war zone, waiting and watching, never knowing if today would be the day he died. About standing in a hospital room, holding his hand as she faded away. About learning to live alone after more than 50 years of marriage. He had survived all of that. Real chaos, real danger, real pain. The night was cold. On 442b, the temperature dropped fast after sunset. The twin moons cast blue and silver light across the land. Wind moved through the trees, making them sway and whisper. Henry woke early, as he always did. His body did not need much sleep anymore. He made coffee and sat in his kitchen, watching the light grow in the sky. It would be dawn soon. Another day, another morning in his life. He did not know that his granddaughter had been traveling to his home the day before. She had left the capital city, Prometheus Station, to visit him for a few weeks. Her flight had landed at the colony just before the alarm sounded. She had been trying to get to his house when the lockdown began. But there was one place she could go. Anywhere was safer than being alone on the roads. Was 26 years old. She worked as a data analyst in the capital. Her work was important but boring. She spent most of her time looking at numbers and charts. She visited her grandfather when she needed to feel like a real person again. He always made her laugh. He always listened. He was the person in her life who made sense. She arrived at his door just as the sun was rising. Henry heard the knock and smiled. He knew exactly who it was, had called him before landing, and he had told her to come to his house if she could. He opened the door and pulled her into a hug. "Grandpa," she said, "the whole colony is going crazy. There is a monster loose." "Not a monster," Henry said. "Just a young creature that escaped. Come inside, you are safe here." They spent the day talking and preparing meals, told him about her work. Henry told her stories about his past, the same stories he had told her many times before. She never got tired of them. They sat together in the afternoon, reading and watching the light change outside. As evening came, they prepared dinner together, made her grandmother's recipe for bread. Henry made soup. They worked in comfortable silence, the way families do when they know each other well. As darkness fell, they sat together in the living room, looked tired from her journey. Henry was about to suggest she sleep when she pointed toward the window. "What is that?" she whispered. Henry turned to look. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw movement, something small, something moving near the window frame. There was a creature there. It was small, less than 2 meters long, with rough green skin and 4 legs. It had a long tail. Its eyes were large and dark. It was shivering. Stood up quickly, backing away. That is the thing they warned us about." "Stay calm," Henry said quietly. "Calm, Grandpa, we need to call security. We need to get out." But Henry was looking at the creature more carefully. There was something on its shoulder. A wound. The scales around it were dark and broken. Blood had dried there. The creature was pressing itself against the window, trying to get inside, but not in an aggressive way. It was moving slowly, carefully. Henry stepped closer to the window. The creature flinched but did not run away. It made a sound, not a roar, not a growl, something smaller, something that sounded almost like pain. "It is hurt," Henry said. "It is dangerous," replied. "We cannot help it. It will kill us." Henry looked at his granddaughter. He had seen fear before. He had lived with fear. He knew the difference between real danger and the fear that fear creates. "I have seen many things in my life," he said quietly. "I have seen men with weapons ready to kill. I have seen storms that destroyed everything. I have seen people face terrible pain. Do you know what I learned?" Shook her head. "Fear looks the same whether it comes from something real or something we imagine. But there is a difference. Real danger, true danger, it has a certain feel. It has intention." He looked back at the creature. "This thing does not have intention to hurt us. It has intention to survive." The creature made that sound again, quieter this time. "We cannot help it," said, but her voice was not as hard as before. She was watching Henry. Henry walked to his back door, followed him confused. He carefully opened it. The creature did not rush in. It did not attack. It simply stood there, shivering, bleeding, looking at Henry with those dark eyes. "Come," Henry said quietly, not to the creature. The cub moved forward slowly. It stepped through the door. It was smaller than the descriptions made it sound. It was thin, it was hurt, it was scared. Pressed herself against the wall, watching. But she did not run, she did not scream. Henry led the creature inside and closed the door. The cub moved to a corner of the room and lay down. It was still shivering. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" whispered. "What I should do," Henry said. He went to his medical kit, the one he kept from his soldier days. He had used it many times in his life. He had bandaged wounds of many kinds. He approached the creature slowly. It watched him but did not move. Henry began to clean the wound on its shoulder. The cub made soft sounds, but it allowed him to work. Watched her grandfather work with steady, careful hands. He was not afraid. He did not hesitate. He moved like someone who had done this before. Someone who had learned that all living things, no matter how different they looked, could feel pain and fear. "How do you not see it?" asked. Henry did not look up from his work. "See what?" "How dangerous this is, how wrong this is." "Because I see what is actually here," Henry said. "Not what I am afraid of, not what others told me to fear, but what is actually in front of me. A young thing, alone, hurt. That is what I see." The creature made a small sound, almost like the sound a cat makes, almost like contentment. Henry finished bandaging the wound. He got a bowl of water from the kitchen and set it near the creature. It drank slowly, carefully. "What do we do?" asked. "We let it rest," Henry said. "We keep it safe for the night, and tomorrow we decide what comes next." Sat down slowly. She was still afraid, but she was also watching her grandfather, who had survived chaos and learned something she was only beginning to understand. 3 days passed. The search teams had not found the creature. The colony remained on high alert. People stayed inside their homes. Shops were closed. Schools did not open. Fear was spreading through New Haven like a sickness that had no cure. Inside Henry's house, everything was different. The cub, which Henry had decided to call Zir, settled into a routine. Each morning, Henry would provide food. He did not know what ate, so he tried different things. Raw meat from the colony stores, vegetables, water. Zir seemed to prefer the meat and certain plants that grew in Henry's garden. The cub ate slowly, carefully, always watching Henry to make sure no danger was coming. Henry treated Zir's wound every morning. He cleaned it with water and used basic medical supplies from his old first aid kit. The wound was healing well. The scales were growing back. The infection that had started was going away. Was still afraid, but each day she became less afraid. She watched her grandfather move around the house with the cub following him like a shadow. Zir would sit quietly while Henry ate meals. The creature seemed to understand that Henry was no threat. More than that, Henry was protection. On the 4th day, called her boyfriend. She made the call from her comm device in her room, keeping her voice low. Answered immediately. "Where are you? I have been trying to reach you for days." "I am at my grandfather's house. I got stuck here when the lockdown started." "Are you safe? That thing could be anywhere." Looked out her window at Henry sitting in the living room. Zir was curled up against his leg, sleeping peacefully. The old man's hand was resting gently on the creature's scales. "We are safe," said. "I need to tell you something." She explained. She told him about the cub, about how her grandfather had brought it inside, about how it had been hurt and scared, about how Henry was caring for it. There was a long silence on the comm. "You are crazy," finally said. "Both of you, you need to call security right now." "No," said. "Come here, come to the house and see for yourself. The cub is not dangerous. It is just a young thing that was abandoned." Another silence. "I am coming," said. "Do not do anything stupid while I am on my way." 2 hours later arrived at Henry's door. He was a practical man, good with numbers but he did not have Henry's experience with the world. He was young. He had not lived through wars or real suffering. He believed what the news told him. He believed what authorities said. He walked in prepared to see danger. Instead, he saw an old man sitting in a chair, reading aloud from a book, while a green reptilian creature rested against his leg, completely calm. "What in the gods' names?" started. "Come sit," Henry said, not looking up from his book. "I am at a good part. This is a book about Earth history, about the old explorers who crossed oceans not knowing what they would find." Sat down, staring at Zir. The creature opened one eye, looked at him, then closed it again and went back to sleep. "It should be attacking us," said. "Why?" Henry asked. "It has no reason to. It is fed. It is safe. Its wound is healing. There is no danger here, so there is no reason to attack." Brought some tea. They sat together, watching Henry read to the sleeping creature. "How long have you known about animals?" asked. Henry closed his book. I was young once, before I was a soldier. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest region of North America. I had dogs, cats, horses. I learned that all living things are the same in important ways. They feel hunger. They feel pain. They feel fear. They want to be safe and warm. They want food. Most of all, they want to not be alone. Henry stood up slowly, careful not to wake Zir. He walked to the kitchen and made more tea. When I was a soldier, he continued, I saw things that would break most people. I saw men do terrible things to other men. I saw hate that seemed to have no bottom. But I also learned something important. The things that make us human are not weapons or technology. They are the ability to see another living being and choose kindness instead of cruelty. The ability to see fear in another's eyes and respond with mercy instead of violence. Listened, he was not convinced exactly, but he was listening. That is pretty, he said. But what happens when the creature heals? What happens when it is no longer weak and hurt? What then? Henry sat back down. Zir woke and moved closer to him, settling down again. Then, Henry said, we will see what this creature becomes when it is safe and cared for. We will learn something new about the universe, or we will make a choice to destroy it. I have seen humans make that choice many times, and I have never seen it lead to anything good. Took's hand. She was watching her grandfather, understanding him in a way she never had before. Henry was not just a kind old man. He was someone who had lived through terrible things and come out the other side still choosing kindness. He was strong in a way that had nothing to do with weapons or violence. Over the next 2 weeks, visited every day, he helped Henry care for Zir. He brought food from the settlement stores. He did not call security. He did not tell anyone. His fear completely disappeared. Zir grew stronger. The wound healed completely. The creature became playful, moving around the house, exploring. It learned to understand simple commands. It would come when Henry called. It would sit when Henry gestured. It would allow and to touch its scales and rub the areas where it had been injured. One day, Zir brought a dead fish it had caught outside and placed it at Henry's feet. The old man understood. This was how showed appreciation. This was how they showed that they understood they were part of a family group. Henry sat on the floor with the creature and held it close. Zir made a low rumbling sound, almost like purring. You see, Henry said to Wen, this is what fear and imagination did to the colony. This gentle thing was going to be hunted down and killed because of fear, because of stories, because of assumptions about its nature. Thought about the people in the settlement, locked in their homes, afraid, missing their lives because of a creature that was not dangerous at all. What do we do? She asked. Henry stood up, moving slowly. His old bones were tired. Eventually, we will have to tell the truth, but not yet. This creature still needs to heal more, and the colony needs to learn how to see clearly again. That will take time. 6 weeks after Zir arrived at Henry's house, the security scan picked up the creature's biological signature. The sensors were good. They detected movement near Henry's property. The readings were clear. The escaped had been found. Cole received the alert at the colony administrative building. Governor Stella Hayes was visiting. She was a high-ranking official from Earth Central, sent to assess the colony's stability and security. She was not a kind person. Her career had been built on order, control, and making difficult decisions quickly. We have the creature, told her. It is near the residential area west of the settlement. Then take it down, Stella said immediately. Eliminate the threat, that is your job. Hesitated, something did not feel right. The creature had been loose for 6 weeks. If it was aggressive, why had there been no attacks? Why had it not tried to kill anyone? The searches had covered this area multiple times. I want to investigate first, said. Something is not right. Stella looked at him with cold eyes. You are the administrator. You make the call. But if that thing kills someone while you are investigating, you are responsible. Made the decision. He sent Dr. Parsons and a small security team to Henry's house. Himself went with them. He wanted to see what they would find. When they arrived, Henry was sitting on his front porch with a cup of tea. The cub was lying next to him, completely relaxed, its scales catching the afternoon light. The security team raised their weapons immediately. Do not fire, said. Hold your position. And Dr. Parsons approached. Henry did not move. Henry said, what is going on here? I am having tea, Henry replied calmly. Zir is resting. We do this every afternoon about this time. You have been harboring the escaped creature, Dr. Parsons said, but she was looking at the carefully. It was healthy. Its scales were clean and smooth, its eyes were bright. There was no aggression in its posture. "I have been keeping it safe," Henry corrected. "It came to my door hurt and alone. The colony wanted to kill it. I could not allow that." Appeared at the door, was visible behind her inside the house. "He is telling the truth," said. "Zier was abandoned by the other. It was hurt and scared. My grandfather saved its life." Did not know what to say. Governor Stella emerged from the transport vehicle angry. "Kill it," she ordered. "Now." "No," Henry said. He stood up slowly. The cub stood with him, not in an aggressive way, but close to him, protected by his presence. "You are harboring a dangerous alien," Stella said. "You have violated safety protocols. You have put the entire colony at risk." "I have done the only thing that was right," Henry replied. "I have shown this creature mercy." Dr. Parsons was running a medical scanner over Zier. Her eyes widened. "This is remarkable. The creature's development is completely normal. No signs of aggression. The wound on its shoulder was severe, but it has healed properly. And look at this." She showed the readings. "Behavioral markers, this cub is bonded. It has formed an attachment. This is not documented behavior for, at least not in recent records." "I do not care about records," Stella said. "It dies now." Stepped forward, trembling with anger. "No, you will not kill it. My grandfather saw something that all of you missed. He saw a child, a young thing that deserved help. Instead of fear and bullets, he gave it food and safety. And look at what happened. It did not hurt anyone. It healed. It became safe." "You are a colonist," Stella said coldly. "You do not get to make decisions about security." "Maybe colonists should," Henry said. "Maybe people who actually live here and are actually affected by these decisions should have a voice." A crowd had formed. Other colonists had seen the security vehicles and the activity. They came to watch. People wanted to know what was happening. They saw the old man. They saw the creature standing peacefully next to him. They saw the daughter and her boyfriend. They saw who lived among them defending this creature. One colonist stepped forward. It was Sarah, who owned the agricultural supply store. "My son asked me about the creature today. He asked if it was evil. I did not know what to tell him. Now I think Henry has given us an answer. That creature is not evil. It is just alive like we are." Another colonist spoke, and another. Soon, a dozen people were saying that they had lived in fear for 6 weeks, but seeing this, they understood that fear had been wrong. Stella's face hardened. "This is insubordination. This is chaos." Looked at the crowd. He looked at Henry and Zier. He looked at Dr. Parsons' medical readings. He made a decision. "Governor, I am ordering the security team to stand down. This creature is not a threat." "You cannot make that decision," Stella said. "I can," replied. "And I am making it. We have an opportunity here. Dr. Parsons, what do you recommend?" Dr. Parsons stepped forward, her voice steady. "I recommend we establish a research program. This cub should remain under observation, but in this environment where it is clearly thriving. Henry is clearly capable of providing appropriate care, and we can study development in a way we never could in the facility. This is scientifically valuable and ethically sound." Stella looked around. She was surrounded by colonists who were no longer afraid. She was surrounded by people who had made a decision based on what they saw, not based on fear. "Fine," she said coldly, "but this is on record. When this goes wrong, you will all be responsible." She left the house. The security team lowered their weapons and stood down, looked at Henry. "That was brave," said, "and dangerous." "I survived chaos," Henry replied. "I survived war. I survived loss. I learned a long time ago that the most dangerous thing is making decisions from fear. The most brave thing is making decisions based on what you actually see and what you actually know." Zier moved closer to Henry, resting its head against the old man's shoulder. "We will establish a research facility," Dr. Parsons said. "Right here, attached to your home, you will be Zier's official caretaker. We will document everything. This could change how we understand an entire species." 6 months had passed since Zier came to live with Henry. The research facility had been built next to his house, a clean, modern structure that could monitor the cub's development without removing it from the safe environment it had found. Dr. Parsons made breakthrough discovery after breakthrough discovery. The data she gathered was revolutionary. Zier had grown. The creature was now 4 meters long, much larger than when it had first arrived. But its nature had not changed. It remained gentle. It remained bonded to Henry. The cub would follow the old man everywhere, watching his movements, learning from his behavior. Dr. Parsons' research revealed something that shocked the scientific community across human space. Were not naturally aggressive. Their reputation as killers had been built on something else entirely. Young required strong bonding. They needed parental figures. Without proper development within a family structure, they became unstable and dangerous. The empire had been damaged by centuries of slavery and warfare. Their societies had fractured. Young grew up without family, without bonds. That is what made them killers. Zier proved what could be when they had love and safety. The cub learned basic commands. It learned to be gentle with humans. It played with Henry, careful not to hurt the fragile old man. It even learned to recognize and greet and when they visited. The research was sent across human and allied space networks. News organizations reported it. Scientists studied it. Political leaders began to question the long-standing hatred of the empire. 12 weeks after Zier's bonding became public knowledge, a delegation arrived at the colony. A diplomatic ship entered orbit. It requested landing permission. The colony, which had been so afraid just months earlier, agreed. The delegation consisted of 5 adult members. They walked down the landing ramp with caution, not knowing what they would find. They had been told that a young cub had survived, that it was alive, that it had bonded with a human. That seemed impossible. That seemed like the kind of fantasy that had no place in a real universe. But when they arrived at Henry's home and saw the cub, they understood. Zier recognized them immediately. The young made sounds that Henry had never heard before, complex and musical. The delegation leader, an ancient named Vex, stepped forward. "The cub is healthy," Vex said. His voice was deep but not threatening. "The cub is bonded." "Bonded to me," Henry said. "My name is Henry. I found this creature alone and hurt. I gave it safety. The rest followed naturally." Vex studied the old human. "You are very old. You will not live much longer." Henry did not feel insulted. It was simply fact. "That is true. I do not have many years remaining, but I have these years, and I have used them to show this creature that the universe does not have to be a place of hate and fear. I have shown it that there is another way." "Why?" Vex asked. "Why would you care for a creature that could have killed you?" Henry looked at who was standing next to him. He looked at Dr. Parsons and who had come to observe this meeting. "Because I survived chaos," Henry said. "Real chaos. I lived through the worst of human history. I saw what hate and fear could do. I saw what weapons could do. I saw what cruelty could create. And in all of that darkness, I learned that survival is not about strength or speed or teeth and claws. Survival is about seeing clearly. It is about understanding what is actually in front of you instead of what you are told to fear. It is about choosing to show mercy even when you have the power to cause harm." Vex was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound, low and rumbling. Others made similar sounds. Henry realized they were communicating something, some form of response. "The Empire has believed that humans were weak," Vex said finally. "We have believed that humans were prey, but a human gave the cub safety when the cub's own kind abandoned it. A human showed kindness to a creature that could have been an enemy. This is not weakness. This is something else. This is a form of strength that we have forgotten." Vex stepped forward and placed one scaled hand on Henry's shoulder. The gesture was deliberate and careful. Henry did not move. He let it happen. "We will establish a cultural exchange," Vex said. "Young will come to learn from humans. Humans will learn from. We will learn how to trust. The cub will stay with you, human Henry. It has found its family. We will not separate it." "For as long as I live," Henry said. "Yes," Vex agreed. "And when your time ends, we will make sure the cub understands that what you gave it was not weakness. It was the highest form of strength." Over the following weeks, a new program was established. The colony became an exchange center. Young came to live with human families, learning to understand humans, to bond, to develop properly. Human students came to study with the delegation, learning history, culture, values. The planet became a symbol, not a place of conflict, not a place of fear. A place where two species had learned that understanding was possible, that bridge building was possible, that peace was not just a dream. Henry continued his simple life. He continued his garden. He continued his mornings of watering tomato plants and his afternoons of sitting with his granddaughter and her boyfriend and his cub. He did not think of himself as remarkable. He thought of himself as a man who had simply made the right choice when a choice needed to be made. One day asked him, Grandpa, do you think of yourself as a hero? Henry laughed, a sound like gravel but not unkind. No, I think of myself as a human who survived chaos and learned something from it. I think of myself as a man who looked at a scared creature and chose not to be afraid. That is all. If that makes me a hero, then the world needs very different standards for what a hero is. Hugged him close. She was crying, though she was not sure why. As the sun set over 442B, Henry sat on his porch with Zier. The creature rested its large head against the old man's thin chest. In the distance, humans and played together, children of both species learning from each other, learning that differences did not have to mean danger. Henry had come to a new world. He had thought his life was over, but his life had changed. His life had meant something, not because he was strong or fast or young, but because he had the wisdom that comes from surviving chaos, the wisdom to see clearly, the wisdom to show mercy. The universe was vast and dangerous, but on one small planet in one small house, an old human and a young had shown that something else was possible. Something better was possible. In the years to come, this moment would be remembered. The moment when an old human and a young proved that the greatest strength in the universe was not weapons. It was not fear. It was not control or dominance. It was compassion. It was the simple choice to see another living being and choose understanding instead of destruction. And in his last years, Henry was not alone. He had a family. He had his granddaughter. He had his friend. He had Dr. Parsons, who had become like a daughter to him. He had who had learned to trust his instincts. He had Zier, who had learned what safety meant. And he had the knowledge that his life, a life that seemed ordinary and small, had changed the universe. That was enough. That was more than enough. The story of the old human and the young would be told across the galaxy. It would be taught to children. It would be studied by philosophers. It would be remembered as the moment when fear gave way to understanding. But Henry never needed to know all of that. He knew something simpler. He knew that he had done the right thing, and in a universe so often filled with darkness, that was a light worth protecting. That night the colony knew the truth. The creature was not a monster. The creature was a young, bonded with an old human, safe and healthy. The fear that had gripped the settlement for 6 weeks began to lift. In the communication networks that connected the colony to Earth and beyond, news began to spread. A human had shown kindness. They had responded with trust. Something new was beginning in the universe, something that would ripple across worlds. Outside, the search team still looked for the cub. The colony remained afraid. But inside Henry's house, something was growing, something that would change everything. A friendship between human and alien, a proof that kindness was stronger than fear, a lesson that would ripple across worlds. In the corner, the cub curled up. Its breathing became slower. It was warm. It was safe. For the first time in days, it stopped being afraid. Henry sat in the quiet of the house. Outside, the colony was locked down. People were afraid. Search teams were hunting. But inside this small house, 3 creatures from different worlds had found something unexpected, the beginning of understanding. A young alien creature did not make him afraid. He had learned long ago that fear was often the greatest danger. Fear made people do foolish things. Fear made them cruel. Fear made them hurt each other. Henry finished his dinner. He washed his dishes. He looked out the window at the darkening forest. Tomorrow, he decided, he would water his garden again. He would tend to his plants. He would live his life. The colony could lock themselves in and wait. The search teams could hunt. But Henry, who had survived decades of real chaos, was not going to spend his remaining years being afraid of a single young creature. He went to bed as the night fell over the colony. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, something was moving through the forest, alone and frightened. But Henry did not know that yet. He simply slept, his old bones resting after a long day of simple work in his garden.